So Bali Maharaj, he's thanking Krishna for taking away all of his material possessions. Krishna in the form of Vamana Dev, as we look in here. And Bali Maharaj, he's going actually right to the essence of the challenge of the living entity, and that's the false prestige, the false identification of our particular position, who we are, and our relationship with the Supreme Lord. And we have the great fortune of actually practicing in the process of Vaidhi Bhakti to engage in this particular, somewhat like this pastime each and every day. But now, this position that Bali is taking, thanking the Lord for taking away all of his material possessions, that's a very, very high standard, so to speak. But it is a standard that we all must come to. And why do I say it's a high standard? Because it's a high standard for those of us who have been influenced by the three modes of material nature. And that's practically everyone on the planet, unless we've come to the platform, at least of the Madhyama Adhikari. Yes, Srila Prabhupada expressed that everyone in the world is actually affected by these particular modes, but there is great hope. There is a way to actually transcend the modes. And so in the prayers of Queen Kunti, she expresses that, my Lord, your lordships can easily be approached by only those who are materially exhausted, Akinchana Gotra. One who is on the path of material progress, trying to improve himself with respectable parentage, great opulence, high education, and bodily beauty, cannot approach you with sincere feeling. And so she's expressing to us and thanking the Supreme Lord Krishna for making himself available for those who have reached that realization, and Bali Maharaj has reached at this point in time, that the Lord is showing great favor by taking away his material opulence. And the whole world, as we express, we have this affected by the modes of material nature. There is the desire to lord over this material nature, Svaraham Bogi. And so because of this desire to lord over material nature, then we have this such anxiety around when the Lord shows his special favor by taking away certain things. And he expresses that in the Srimad Bhagavatam. That's one of the qualities of the name of the Lord and the name of Hari. Hari, the Lord who takes everything away. He shows special favor to the devotees and the demons, as Bali Maharaj is expressing in this verse. And we find in Bhagavad Gita that Krishna expresses that, he is impartial. And so this is also being illustrated by Bali Maharaj in this verse. The same favor that he awards to the devotees by taking material opulences away is the same, benediction that is also offered to the demons. And so we find that we were just listening to a lecture the other day, and Srila Prabhupada, it was like a favorite, famous lecture of Srila Prabhupada, where he is, I believe it was in Philadelphia, during one of the Vyasa Pujas of His Divine Grace, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And so during this particular Vyasa Puja, Srila Prabhupada is expressing such heartfelt gratitude to all of the personalities and all of the disciples for coming to him and assisting him in his service to his spiritual master, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And when he's expressing this heartfelt gratitude, he's also expressing that when he received this order from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, in his own words, he says that I was actually horrified. I was horrified because I was thinking, here I have to give up my family to actually carry out this order. But he did it. And by his grace, his divine grace, we are actually having this opportunity today, each and every one of us. Throughout the world, the glories of the Lord is actually being sung. And that's all due to his divine grace. And at the same time, we see that he's being used in this particular situation to help us to understand that, even though we may have some challenge by seeing the Lord's hand everywhere, the Lord is always there with us. And he's there with us, and of course, in the association of devotees, he's there with us in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. He's there with us in the form of the Holy Dham. He's there with us in the form of the Artavigraha, the Lord's devotee. He's there with us in the form of Mahaprasadam. He's there each and every day, everywhere. And so the Lord actually, Bhagavad Maharaj expresses in here that by chastising us, you give us the eyes in which to see the right path. And so we begin to receive these eyes to see the right path by the engagement of the hearing process and chanting. But we begin to actually see the right path by hearing. And one way that we can actually practice trying to see, of course, with the hearing process, but then we can also practice applying Shastra Shaktus by seeing the Lord each and every day through his energy, the Vibhutis. He's given us this opportunity. He expresses, he goes through the Bhagavad Gita, showing us so many different ways, and of the aquatics, I am the shark, of the greatest of mantras, I am the Maha Mantra. He just goes through and he shows us, you can see me each and every day and each and everything. I am there, I'm present. And so we can practice by seeing through the eyes of the Shastra. We can also practice by trying to develop this humble mood, the mood of the servant, and developing the mood of gratitude. And this is this particular point that Bhagavad Maharaj is making here. And of course, we have that famous verse, Tateinu Kampams Sushamikshimano, that the devotees, they actually see the Lord's hand in each and everything and every encounter. And so, of course, we expressed that Bhagavad Maharaj, he goes to the essence, one of the most difficult things to actually give up, and not necessarily material opulence in the form of things, but give up this conception, this false prestige. I remember when I first came to devotional service, and I was really, really attached to music. And not as a musician, but just the aficionado of music. I had like a $30,000 sound system. I had 1,000 LPs and hundreds of CDs, and this was my this was my joy, engaging in the sound of music. And when I met Bhakti Titra Maharaj and the devotees, I really wanted to actually associate more. And so I gave all of this up. I gave everything away. And then I moved into the Institute. And I was chanting Hare Krishna. We were in the Association of Devotees. And I remember saying to, especially Vrajlila, I said, wow, I have no material desires. And the devotees in the room, they bust out laughing. And I said, well, what are they laughing at? And, someone in the background said, PDS. I said, oh, what is this? What is PDS? Anyway, I soon found out, because as we were chanting Hare Krishna, all of these different forms of material desires started manifesting more and more. And I was like, oh, this is what they're talking about. But Bali Maharaj expresses that false prestige, this is the one of the greatest challenge to actually give up. And let's talk about false prestige a little bit, Reggie.
I think we're the best people to talk about false prestige. Because Prabhupada, he tells us some of the different ways that we can experience false prestige. And of course, Prabhupada is sharing with us through Bali Maharaj that material opulence, having material opulence is one of the ways that most people experience having false prestige. Ekavira Prabhu is sharing how Bali Maharaj, it wasn't that. I mean, he of course he gave Krishna everything. However, it wasn't so much all that he gave to Krishna. It was more that he understood that everything belonged to the Lord. He had that understanding that this belongs to God, it belongs to Krishna. And so for him to have given Krishna, to have given Vamanadev all these, for him to have let Vamanadev takes these different steps, that wasn't such a, for him, it was like, okay, well, if the Lord wants this, give this to the Lord. However, as Ekavira Prabhu shared, and most of the time conditioned people they're not able to do this, because in the Bhagavad Gita, in the 16th chapter, it's explained to us that the way a person that is attached to Krishna's external material energy thinks is, so much wealth do I have today, so much wealth, and I will gain more. I will just get more and more according to my different schemes. So much is mine now, right? I have so much wealth now. And even when we have a little, right? Like now people are getting some money in the government. They're thinking, oh yeah, I have a little money, right? I have a little money. So that kind of adds to some little importance for people. And then so Krishna, and so it's explained that so much is mine, so much is mine, and it will increase in the future more and more and more. I have a friend that she calls me regularly to let me know about what's happening with the money that we're supposed to be receiving from the government. And I'm always laughing when she calls, because I know she's going to tell me like, oh, it's coming, it's not coming, it's coming, it's coming, it's not coming, it's not coming. And so, we're always thinking how to increase whatever we have more and more and more. And then another mentality is that someone is my enemy and I have killed him, and my other enemies will also be killed. That's the mood of a person that is fully absorbed in Krishna's material energy in the form of this opulence of wealth. Now we know that Krishna is the most wealthy. Krishna is the only one that really has any wealth, because any wealth we accumulate in the material world is so temporary. However, what comes with that wealth mentality is this dangerous concept of false prestige. This dangerous, very dangerous for us in the material world for humanity. Because most people think that they're great, that they're wonderful. And even people that have really no material wealth still have this concept of themselves, that they're great, they're wonderful. So in the Bhagavatam, we have so many examples of personalities that teach us about false prestige. I mean, starting from the first canto, We have the story of Shringi, and then we can go throughout the Bhagavatam and find these persons that either they had some wealth, or they had some mentality that they thought that they were God. You know, this concept of I'm God, you're God, we're all God. These different mentalities have caused this downfall of human society, so to speak, right? This is where we start with this false prestige being so dangerous. The social order of human structure, human society started breaking down with this influence of false prestige. I mean, actually, even us being in this material world is an influence of false prestige. And so we see that in the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, there's this explanation by Lord Brahma, where Brahma is trying to establish his actual position as an instrument of the Lord, not as a person that is thinking that I am God, even though we do have people in the world that worship Lord Brahma. There's a group that's called the Brahma Kumaras. They worship Lord Brahma as the creator and also as God in one sense. So Brahma, he's himself begging that he doesn't want to be seen as God because he understands fully what that means. Although we know that there's some pastimes of him having to be tested and him having to show that for him to be taught that he's not so great. He's not, someone that is beyond having to receive instructions from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then we have that famous story that I think is being read in so many temples right now. I know it's being read in our temple and it's being read in the Institute about Daksha and Lord Shiva. And we see that influence of false prestige, how when Daksha was given a position, which is one of the greatest downfall again of us developing a deeper consciousness of who we are. This downfall came from Daksha thinking that his great position made him greater than Lord Shiva. And so as a result, he became so offensive to Lord Shiva in this pastime. And we learn through this excessive envy of Lord Shiva, this excessive thinking that he is such a great and wonderful person because he has this huge position, that because of that, this false ego in this pastime has taught us so many lessons of how false ego can become so dangerous for the upliftment of humanity, or for a person to really progress in higher consciousness, or for a person to really be given the opportunity for their dormant love of God to be awakened. And so this false prestige is something that as devotees, we need to become very, very present to. We need to become very aware. And of course, the senior devotees, they're always teaching us through them sharing the sastras or through their own examples of why it is important for us to understand this principle that false ego, false prestige, which comes from pride, can be an impediment to us growing in our spiritual life. And so I wanted to share from Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj something. There's a couple of stories that I wanted to share from him, and Ekavira Prabhu will come back and share about how material life disturbs, just kind of disturbs everything in our being. And so Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, when him and Radhanath Maharaj were together during the time of his departure, Radhanath Swami, Srila Radhanath Maharaj, Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj once gave a class, and he was going into what he called, and what we all know was samadhi, means he was not going to be speaking to anyone anymore. And so he said to Radhanath Swami that he wanted to let everyone know that he did not want to be seen anymore as a Swami. He did not want to be seen as Bhakti Tirtha Swami. He did not want to be seen as someone that had disciples. He did not want to be seen any of the externals. He said that he needed to give that, he needed to let everyone know that he's not any of that, any of those external designations, and that he is simply a servant of the servant of the servant of the servant, right? Jivera Sarup, that's it's CC, that he is just simply a servant. And so what he did is he gave a class and he let everyone know, please don't think of me as a guru. Don't think of me as Bhakti Tirtha Swami, a Swami. Don't think of me as somebody that have disciples, whatever. You know, I'm not alive to those things anymore, because as he said, those things are just bodily designations. They are physical designations. They're not really who we are. So here we have this pastime of Bali Maharaj that's teaching us the same thing. Like, okay, Krishna, Vamanadev wants these, you know, this land, give it to him. Give it to him. So Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj in the same way was saying, all of these different designations, they don't really belong to me. They're not really who I am. And so, so that was one example of us learning from him that at the end of the day, all of these physical designations that we have for ourselves, it's so important to explore how much of it we identify with as who we are. Because if we're identifying with this, you know, I'm Vrajlila, I try to speak to the devotees, I you know, blah, 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 whatever I think about myself. If I am absorbed in that thinking and not realizing that this is really not who I am, that I am simply a servant of the Lord, a servant of the Lord's devotees, then I will be confused in my desire to grow spiritually. And so so there's so many examples of Ekavira Prabhu spoke about gratitude. And so this is one of the ways that we can counteract this false prestige. Radhanath Swami, he tells us, there's a quote of his that says, and I have this quote up on my wall, I look at this quote every day. He says, start your day with a grateful heart. Start your day with a grateful heart. And so this is what, in that tape that Ekavira Prabhu was sharing about Prabhupada, when Prabhupada was saying that when Bhaktisiddhanta asked him to take sannyas, and Prabhupada realized he had to give up everything, when Prabhupada came to America and got and Krishna sent him these devotees. We have this glorious devotee here with us, Haripurush Prabhu. He was one of those that assisted Srila Prabhupada in this mission. And so when Prabhupada started expanding in the mission, for the glorification of his spiritual master and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Prabhupada cried and thanked the devotees in gratitude. He broke down and said, you know, I just want to share. I just want to thank you. I am just so grateful that you have come forward to serve and assist me in this mission for my spiritual master. So here, this is the mood of someone that is teaching us how not to have this false prestige of thinking that he did anything great, right? And Srila Prabhupada, as we all know, did the greatest thing for humanity that anybody could ever have done. Nobody has done what Srila Prabhupada has done. Yet he teaches us by crying in front of his disciples in gratitude, letting us know, letting us understand, I'm simply a servant of my spiritual master. I'm simply a servant of the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And so here we also wanted to share from one of Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj's books. You know, he wrote 18 books. And in one of his books, he specifically speak about the false ego. And he specifically speak that the false ego is the greatest enemy of the spiritual leader. So anyone that's thinking that they are some type of a leader, they definitely always need to be exploring to what degree false prestige may have is a part of their consciousness. And unless we are pure devotees of the Lord, then certainly we all have some false prestige. Or at least I can just say that I do. Prabhupada actually says Grihastha life is one of those places where false prestige is huge, right? Unless we are realizing in Grihastha life that our service together as a couple is to be able to remind ourselves and to remind others that we are simply servants of our spiritual master and simply servants of the Lord. So this is the real mood of a grihastha, is to keep that as the forefront. However, oftentimes we forget, because as grihasthas, people have to work, they have to earn money, they're all sometimes around materialists. So many different obstacles may be there in order to keep that as the focus. However, this is why in the Grihastha Vision team, we remind Grihasthas, what is our goal, what is our purpose? Otherwise, we can, as grihasthas, be lost in this absorption of thinking I, me, mine, my family, me. So everything belongs to, me and my family, right? So this is something that we need to become very, at least I can say, as a grihastha, I need to keep that as a part of the focus. And so lastly, before Ekavira comes back for a couple of minutes, I wanted to share a meditation of Bhakti Maharaj, where he says the false ego brings on spiritual suicide. So this is false prestige. It brings on spiritual suicide. If we're not attentive, if we don't listen to these stories, if we don't read and hear from Srila Prabhupada from the Krishna book, there's beautiful, wonderful stories. Muchakunda, Nalakovara, so many examples. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, we have so many examples. King Venu, Rahugana Maharaj, and Jad Bharat, examples of personalities that shows us by their example that they think that they're great, and somehow or other it's arranged for them to learn that no, this is all false prestige. And so then things get taken away, as we hear from Bali Maharaj, how everything got taken away. Of course, he gave it, but everything was taken away in one sense. Anyway, Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, getting back to the false ego, he speaks in this meditation to Srila Prabhupada. And Prabhupada, he's in this mood, he's talking to Prabhupada, and Srila Prabhupada is constantly saying to him, he said, my dear disciple, give up what you think, who you think you are, and become a puppet for me. Whenever you are thinking of something, always consider, is this how my spiritual master thinks, or how he would want me to be thinking at this moment? So this is the conversation in this meditation between Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj and Srila Prabhupada. And Srila Prabhupada is sharing this to him. Now, this might be a little controversial for some people about Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj and Prabhupada speaking to each other in a meditation. That's up to the senior devotees. I'm just simply repeating what I've read from my spiritual master, what I've learned from my spiritual master. And then here again, he says to Prabhupada, Prabhupada says to him, my dear disciple, give up who you think you are and become a puppet for me. As you interact in various environments, people will treat you in different ways. Sometimes it will be confusing for you to process what your feelings should be. But as you are living for me, you must think, how would my guru interpret each situation? And how would he want me to feel about each encounter? So again, this is him, Srila Prabhupada, sharing, like, always be thinking, whatever I am doing, how is that pleasing to my spiritual master? How am I really being a servant? And so at the end of this meditation, this is like the key. This is like the awakening, if you will. At least this is the awakening that I am learning and wanting to truly understand. But Tirtha Maharaj says, as I sat down before many disciples in full readiness to again explain to them how they must offer me their will, He said, I beheld a vision of my own guru. He looked at me at first with anger and then with sadness as he spoke to me. Bhakti Tirtha, although the words you speak are correct, you are in no position to tell anyone how to offer their free will back to Krishna. You must demonstrate this with your very being. How will you teach them this pure science when your own thinking, feeling, and willing are so impure? Have you fully become a puppet for me? Gurudev continued, first, become fully surrendered to Guru and Krishna yourself. Then your own example will convince those under your care to follow your lead. What a huge false ego you have in demanding from others what you yourself are lacking. Do you think that you are a first-class mentor? I have seen your disciples, so you can prepare them properly for devotional service. But even more important, I have sent these disciples to teach you how to become a better disciple yourself. My request is that you give up who you think you are and you, once and for all, stop committing spiritual suicide. Guru's words vibrated in my heart. Do not delay in fulfilling this order. This may be the last time I return to save you. This is the mood of devotees that are committed to their spiritual master. They're committed in such a way that they open themselves up for us to even, sometimes we may read something like this and we may become offensive in our minds because we may think, how can someone that is supposedly a pure devotee or supposedly dedicated to a spiritual master not understand within themselves that false prestige is a killer of the soul? How could they not have this understanding? Well, this is Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj's humility as far as I can understand as a disciple. What he's teaching me is that for me to be an example for others, I need to be that first within myself. That was the example of Bali Maharaj. He himself was dedicated to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He himself was able to give up everything to the Lord without envy, without resentment. He gave it because he understood that there was a higher principle of love. And so this is the mood that we are understanding, and we are in no way qualified to talk about false prestige because we're in a Vigrasa ashram. At the same time, Gauracharan Prabhu, you've been so kind to invite us to share, so we can just try to pray for the mercy from Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and all the devotees. Janata P, please let us get that verse in our consciousness so that we can become who we really are, servants of the servants of the servants of the Lord.
Yeah.
Ekavira Prabhu.
And as Vrajlila expressed, and I'll be very brief, and I also expressed earlier that, we have to give up this mood of false prestige, this mood of enviousness. We have to give these things up, and we can endeavor to do those things by cultivating the modes of goodness. By having the mood of gratitude, by seeing everything through the eyes of Shastra, by developing this mood of gratitude, a Pollyanna mood. But primarily, we must understand that endeavor is there, and it shows a degree of sincerity and seriousness. However, this deep mood of false prestige and envy can only be destroyed by the Supreme Lord, by Krishna. And this is depicted in the pastime of Kaliya. We won't go, we all know the pastime of Kaliya, and Krishna is dancing upon the hoods, and this particular pastime, Kaliya's hoods represent the actual mood of false prestige and arrogance that come up. And by Krishna dancing upon the hoods with his soft feet, but although they're so soft and sweet, they're hitting Kaliya's heads as like thunderbolts. And each of the hoods that rise up, like I talked about the false prestige or false ego that I expressed I had, saying that I had given up all material desires. this is how these different anarthas actually manifest. And Krishna can actually remove all of these anarthas. And how does he remove these anarthas? By the dancing of his holy name on our tongue. And so we're instructed by our Param Guru and your Guru Maharaj Adipurush Prabhu to chant the holy names. Chant the holy names with sincerity. And as Queen Kunti expressed, chant the holy names with sincere feeling. And by doing so, we can actually, and pray to the Lord, as Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj is making prayers to not only to Krishna, but to Krishna's representative, Srila Prabhupada. Pray to the Lord for assistance and help to have these particular this mood of false prestige taken from our heart.
Thank you very much. We're sorry we went a little bit
We're going over time. I'm being pinched under the table. We're going over time.
We're going over time. I mean, we could talk about false prestige, at least for the rest of this body that we have. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much for this. Right. You have any questions? Please.
Yeah, anybody has any questions or comments that you want to add, please feel free to do so. The darshan is yet to be open, so please go ahead.
Okay.
I just want to say Haribol to our dear sister Kamenia that is in Switzerland, so far away. Somehow she's here on the call. Wow, we're so happy to see you. She's an old timer at the Bhakti Center, Ranat Maharaj disciple. We're grateful, so grateful to see you.
Haribol.
Hari Hari.
Yes, Adipurush Prabhu, please.
It's so wonderful. We really bask in your joyful enthusiasm and your conviction and that you want to share these principles. Very nicely expressed. Wonderful class. We also, every day we're thinking, these devotees that are taking care of Radha Muroidar through the pandemic, just a team daily, all day, every day, 24/7 for months and months and months. The deities look so happy and satisfied, that they're being taken care of with such love. Every day we see them, but I just want to mention that these pujaris are there and they're really working as a team, very, very, very steadily dedicated, and they're sustaining us. But I don't know if anybody's really always thinking about that, but I really want to acknowledge that and thank Krishna for their wonderful example of love for Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Dr. Allen has a question here.
Hi, I really enjoyed your class. But the question I have is, you talked about ego with the material world. But you get sometimes a lot of religious people who are very egotistical in their own way. How, look at me, I'm God-fearing, I do this devotion, I do this service. So it seems to me ego is of the spiritual world as well as the material world. So I just wanted some comments about that.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, your screen hung up and we didn't get the question clearly.
I think yeah. So yes, you're absolutely right. There was a little distraction in terms of the Zoom thing. However, you're absolutely right, and thank you for that amazing question. Yes, this material world that we live in, most of the people in the world are very absorbed with their false ego, thinking I'm me, mine, everything belongs to me, I'm the proprietor of everything, I'm the control of everything. That's the mentality of people in the material world. However, the beauty of that, Prabhu, which is the most beautiful thing, is that Krishna has arranged, God has arranged that there are representatives all in every universe that is there to help someone to change that mentality whenever they're ready. So the choice to change is always there. And we are so fortunate that we get an opportunity to help with that change, to help Srila Prabhupada, to help others through the knowledge. And starting with Bhagavad Gita, it is the most awesome book to start to give people to change that knowledge, so people can really awaken to the love of who they are. Because false ego creates misery, ultimately. Yeah, misery.
And also, yes, when we see certain things that qualities in other people, as we were expressing in the verse, we can also make a shift to see things from a different perspective and to understand that we're being given this vision. People are really like mirrors.
Yes.
And so we can actually, oh, Radha Muralidhar.
Hari Hari Bol, Radha Muralidhar, Radha Muralidhar ki jai.
I'll be quick. So we look at these situations as Krishna's arrangement to help us to look in our own hearts and pray to the Lord to help us to be better examples of that quality that we would like to see in other people too. So,
and the ego in the spiritual world is not the same ego that causes the kind of misery that people experience in the material world. There's true ego, or ego, so this ego that is only for Krishna. Ego that Krishna is so beautiful and so wonderful, and I just want to give everything to serve the Lord. And so this is the example we have of Bali Maharaj. His real ego of who he is the example for us.
Thank you for your question, Prabhu.